Welcome to Jesus Energy. In this space, we move beyond beliefs, beyond actions, and into seeking how to emanate and embody the healing, transformative, and loving energy of Jesus. This project is dedicated to anyone who wants to move into more experiential dimension of Christianity, who longs to be spiritually curious and expansive while also rooted into the love of Jesus, to those that might be wondering if they're Christian and are holding on because of their love for and relationship with Jesus, and also just to anyone who wants to feel alive in their body, manifest the life of their dreams, and maybe even cultivate some heaven on earth while we're at it. So I'm so glad you're here. In this episode, we get to learn and hear from the incredibly kind, gentle, wise, and compassionate Frank Rogers. He is an award-winning author, a spiritual director and supervisor, a certified IFS practitioner, and his newest book, Cradled in the Arms of Compassion, was recently acknowledged and selected as one of 2023's best spiritual books by Spirituality and Practice. Pretty amazing resource we have here. And in this episode, we are specifically focusing on learning from him on his wisdom of IFS, or internal family systems. It is a modality that is really rising in popularity for the success that it has had in helping people find healing. And from him, we're particularly going to learn about what internal family systems is, what it has to do with the mission of Jesus, and how it can help us live from a place of more compassion and curiosity and creativity in our day-to-day lives. And toward the end of this episode, we move through like a bit of what a mini IFS session might sound like. My intention was to kind of offer insight into, I think I just learn best from experience and hearing things how they actually are versus just kind of talking about them. So that was my intention, to offer a little more deeper explanation of what it might sound like. And in that process, I mentioned, sometimes as we're moving through sessions, the idea is to let whatever comes to the surface to come to the surface without judgment, and to, offer it into the hands of Jesus and just let things rise as they do. With that said, I mentioned a fear that I'm working through around like not being seen as Christian. And I just want to acknowledge I absolutely love learning from other traditions and religions and find so much value in that. And as Frank pointed out, this fear is more about a fear of, most deeply, I would say, about a fear of rejection. And also, as I've thought about it further, it is about this concern around people thinking that things that I'm putting out there are not in alignment with Jesus. Like, that is like a big fear of mine. I would never want to leave someone off the course of Christ and love and compassion. And I worry that people might judge me in that way. Bring some tears to the surface as I say it. So I just wanted to, I should probably IFS session my need for constantly over clarifying, but here we are. So I just wanted to point that out. And I am just honored to bring his wisdom forth in this way. And there's just so much value in his teaching. So thank you so much for being here. It's a true joy and honor. Reach out to me if you have any questions. All my love, 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 and healing energy to you, dear friend. Let's go. Welcome. I'm so grateful to be here with Frank Rogers. He is a professor of spiritual formation at the Ecumenical and Interfaith Claremont School of Theology. He has taught spirituality, contemplative practice, and compassionate social engagement for over 30 years and has written numerous articles and books, including Compassion in Practice, The Way of Jesus, as well as Cradled in the Arms of Compassion. And as the co-director for the Center for Engaged Compassion, he offers and teaches compassion-based approaches to spiritual direction and supervision. And I was fortunate enough to take a class from Frank on internal family systems for spiritual directors. And it's so funny. I'm sort of distracted by this funny light that's coming in on my face at the moment. But it's cool. God is with us. And from the moment he started teaching, from the moment you started teaching, I could just feel the compassion oozing out of you. And this might sound totally weird, but I was thinking about this earlier in preparation for today, and your eyes just have such kindness in them, which is, how I imagine Jesus' eyes to be. So that's something that just really stands out to me about your presence, and wanted to share that as we begin. So truly, truly an honor to be here with you. Thank you for your time. And as we begin, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear from your voice who you are and your mission and what you're up to.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kate. First of all, oh my goodness, what tender words. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for sharing that. And for the very comprehensive biography. I mean, that's certainly what I do. I teach and direct the Center for Engaged Compassion. We're very committed to cultivating compassion. So we teach workshops and retreats about how compassion can help us kind of self-restore, help us access our best selves. And then in addition to that, then how compassion can help us connect in relationships. And so we help cultivate compassion in increasing levels of difficulty with our loved ones and strangers in the world and people in need, but then also even people that are challenging for us and people that are difficult for us. And what does it look like to try to cultivate compassion, especially in a very polarized world that we live in? So that's a lot of the
Yeah.
work that we do through the center. And I'm also, like you say, a writer. My most recent book, like you just mentioned, Cradled in the Arms of Compassion, is really a spiritual memoir of my own recovery from childhood abuse and how compassion, both connecting with a deep, compassionate source, self-compassion, and then compassion even for the people that were in my lives, really covered
Mm.
my spiritual journey into wholeness and healing and recovery. And so now I'm doing some workshops on spirituality and trauma. And
Wow.
actually, just 2 days ago, that book won the Best Religion Book Award for the American Book Fest in 2024. I
That's
was so crazy
amazing.
honored. So that's opening up a lot of doors as well.
Congratulations. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Surprise out
I
of the
have it
blue.
sitting on my table upstairs. Yo, that's so cool. That's
Yeah.
so neat. Yeah, so like you said, so much of your work is based on compassion and sharing compassion. And so can you talk a little bit more about how you have come to know God as compassionate and why that is so important in our foundation?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kate. I mean, yeah, for me, compassion is everything and is the absolute essence of the God that I know. As soon as you asked that, it reminded me when I was in college, I went to a faith-based school and I had a mentor, the Reverend Dr. James Earl Massey, who was just one of these people who just you felt like you were in the presence of a true person of God. I mean, he just had this dignity and this presence and this inner calm and this inner knowing. And I took as many classes from him as I could. He told me once, but I'll just never forget. He said, Frank, God's first and last impulse toward you and all of creation is always compassion. And if you
Mm,
know this, you know everything. And that has just stuck with me. That the essence, I mean, the essence of the God that Jesus knew was a God of abundant, extravagant compassion. This God who looks upon all persons and sees us in our pain and delights in our joys and companions us in any place that we find ourselves. And so that just it rang true inside of me. And so kind of like my life
Yes.
quest was how do I get to know this God of compassion? And for
Yes.
me, I'm an abuse survivor, and really my own discovery of that God or my own experience of that God came in the midst of
Mm,
my own recovery journey. That in the midst of the horrors of that trauma that I experienced kind of overwhelming me, and I found myself in deep despair. As I even found myself in a mental institution at one point, and at the
mm,
absolute rock bottom, and in the midst of the mental institution, just kind of poured it all out, just screaming at God, why do these violations happen in the world? And where
yes.
were you? And how can anybody live in the midst of this? And literally in a padded room, as I was wailing and raging in a mental institution, I mean, the lowest of the low, I just had this enormous experience where all of a sudden, all of that pain and all of that despair, it just melted in the presence of this
Wow.
profound sense of this compassionate God that was with me, holding me, cradling me in the midst of it all. And
Mm,
that was just, it went into my bones, it went into my marrow. And my journey has been, how do I stay close to that? How do I live out of that deep sense of compassion? Because it is the essence of the sacred as far as I'm concerned.
yes. Can I ask, like, how do I even word this? Where did you go from there? How did that pull you forward? And what was that next step? How did you bring that compassion that was in your bones and your marrow with you?
Well, a couple of things. One was that my journey up to then was a journey of trying to fight against, my shames and the pain of the trauma. I mean, I was just so ashamed of, it was a sexual abuse survivor, and just all of the self-hatred and the self-loathing. I just wanted to distance myself from that as much as possible and just bury it. And that experience of a God who holds me and is with me even in the midst of the ugliest, the most vile kind of shame. I felt like I was, wrapped in excrement. I mean, I was just soiled in my bones. And to experience that God would hold me even in the midst of the damaged goods that I felt that I was, gave me the freedom to not have to run away from the trauma, but to be able to enter into it and say, oh no, this is what I experienced, and I needed to hold it myself. I needed to be willing to face the horrors and the pain and the shame of it all, held by this sacred presence that was saying, I will be with you in the midst of this. And the other piece that is then connected to IFS is it also helped me discover that all of the rages that I felt, or all of the self-hatred that I felt, or all the sabotaging behaviors that I found myself in trying to cope, that all of it was rooted in me trying to find a way to survive in the midst of the horrors that I had lived through. And so instead of judging myself for all of those things, or instead of trying to suppress that or trying to manage it, it was this invitation to, okay, let's hold our rages, let's hold our behaviors, let's hold our inner impulses with compassion, because they come from suffering. They come from a deep ache that is wanting to be held and to be met. And so it opened up a journey of recovery, where I can now begin to face what my feelings were or what my impulses were with compassion, and kind of heal and restore them, instead of just trying to manage them or suppress them, or being ashamed of them.
Yes. So, two things. I am just overwhelmed with your, in a good way, with your strength and your resilience and your embodiment of hope that you are is so inspiring and beautiful. And also, you bring up IFS. How do you define and describe internal family systems, IFS?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And first, I also want to say that recovery journey, it took some time. I mean, it was not
Yeah.
like, one spiritual
Yeah.
experience. And all of a sudden, yeah, I'm healed and recovered. I mean, that, like you had said,
Yeah.
that launched, it really kind of launched a recovery process that was 30 years ago where
Yeah.
I had that experience. And so it was, for 10, 15 years, an intense commitment to a healing journey with various therapeutic modalities and contemplative
Yeah.
practices, all of it, a lot of support that I found. So I described that healing journey in some detail in the book you referred to, but I want to be sure that people hear that it is a journey. It's not a quick,
Yeah.
easy type of a fix. That spiritual experience all of a sudden heals all trauma.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great if that were the case?
Yes.
And one of those modalities that was so helpful was internal family systems or IFS, like you mentioned. And I see IFS, it originated as a form of therapy. Richard Schwartz kind of discovered this process, and now it is considered one of the primary trauma therapies. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, lifts up IFS as
Yes.
one of a few of the kind of therapeutic modalities that are especially helpful for trauma. I also come to IFS and see it as a spiritual path as well. It's not just a
Yeah.
therapeutic modality. And so I teach it as a spiritual path for people who are not necessarily in therapy, but are looking for spiritual resources to really kind of regulate and help us access our best self. The reason I consider it a spiritual path is because the heart of IFS is the recognition that every single human being has a spiritual essence inside. They call it the true self or self energy.
Yeah.
And it is,
Yes.
it is an essence that spiritual paths around the world have recognized. Christians might call it the imago Dei inside, or the Christ consciousness, or mystics like Thomas Merton or Richard Rohr would call it the true self. And it is this spark of the divine that dwells in every single human being, this inner flame that is a spiritual essence. And when we come back home to ourselves and we are grounded in that self essence, that best self, that's where we have access to all of our capacities for resilience, for connection, for clarity, that deep inner calm, and that's the place we want to navigate our lives out of. And so IFS is a process that helps us access that deep spiritual energy, that ground of being that's in every human, and to be able to live out of that space. And that's what makes it a spiritual path for me.
That's so beautiful. You mentioned this a little bit, but can you elaborate further on what IFS, how that's connected with the mission of Jesus and how we can use it in our lives to like strengthen our relationship, our awareness of Christ with us, God with us?
Yeah, yeah. Well. So first of all, Jesus came wanting to bring wholeness, right? He wanted to bring healing. He wanted to help persons who were troubled to be able to find that inner strength and that inner sense that each and every single human being is beloved, that each and every single human being is a child of God, and that God's deepest desire for every one of us is that we not only know our own belovedness, but that we flourish. I came that you might have life and have life abundantly. That we might blossom like the lilies of the field. I mean, God's deepest desire is that we become fully alive and fully whole. And
Mm,
Jesus
yeah,
was a healer, and so he would come in with persons who were traumatized, persons who were ostracized by
yeah,
their communities, and would help them become restored back to their best self, restored into the beautiful humanity that they were created to be. And IFS is a very concrete, practical way of helping us be able to heal, and especially in the ways in which we've been ostracized. The other piece that I would say about that is that IFS is a radically non-pathologizing and a radical a welcoming of all of our interior world, of all of our emotions and our impulses. What one of the insights of internal family systems is that we all have kind of different parts of us, and our
yes,
parts that carry different emotions or parts that carry different impulses. A part of me would really like to be able to go to a party this weekend and be with my friends, and another part of me just wants to go away on retreat and have some downtime. And we have like little different sub personalities. A part of me that gets really irritated at different things, or a part of me that carries despair. And IFS recognizes that when these parts of us kind of take over, they hijack our inner world. They kind of like drive the bus of our interior experience, and they dislodge us from our best self,
Yeah.
from that deep sense of connection. And normally, when reactivities or emotions or impulses dislodge us, usually we judge those. We see, there's something wrong with me for feeling that way, or I need to stop and I need to suppress that, or I need to change how I am, or I scold myself. IFS takes this radical approach that all of our interior movements, all of these emotions and impulses, they come from someplace good. They're trying to
Yeah.
do something positive for us, to help us survive or to
Mm.
help us
Mm.
heal. And so it's an invitation to this radical welcoming of our interior experience, all the different parts of us. And for me, it's kind of like the kingdom of God, where Jesus came to bring about a kingdom on earth where everybody is welcomed, where everybody is treated with dignity, everybody is invited to know their best self, to know their
Yeah.
belovedness, to live in harmony. And
Yeah.
essentially IFS is an invitation to cultivate the kingdom of God within us. Jesus
Yeah.
said the kingdom of God is within you. And so we have these multiple emotions and impulses inside of us. IFS, like Jesus, would invite us into a radical welcome, a radical curiosity, and listening to those interior experiences to help hear what they need, hear their cry, and meet their needs to help us
Yeah.
become restored to our best self. So that's another way I see it, very resonant with Jesus's mission. And Kate, I
Yes.
notice now I'm getting
So, so
the little
beautiful.
glow here. I'm gonna kind of move my. I
Yeah.
had the
An
sun glow, so I
angel.
kind of move. That's right.
I'm
We have companions
always
with
like,
us.
bring it.
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have companions. Can you offer an example of how an emotion that would I might typically have the urge to suppress, like anxiety or anger, um, and how that can be used for good? I might give like an ex- an example. I mean, this is really silly. This is really silly. So the other day, my wonderful teen who I absolutely adore took out a load of towels mid wash cycle. As I said, this is really silly. And took them out, put them on the floor, stopping wet water running everywhere to put in her laundry, which it's amazing that she does her laundry. It's super cool. And she was like, Mom, like, you might be mad. I, I did this. I was like, yes, this is frustrating. I could feel myself start to get a little boily. And I was like noticing it and watching it and like, okay, how can I use this raise of emotion for good? And I just caught myself wondering like, okay, can I, for some reason, this feels like an example of like what I feel myself almost being totally merged with the sensation, but like trying really hard to watch it and be aware of it and use it as a teaching moment.
Yeah, yeah. What a great question. I mean, and that happens to all of us, right? A child
Yeah.
that does something, and all of a sudden we just we get irritated or upset or angry. My son
Yeah.
was supposed to pick me up at 5 o'clock. He borrowed the car, and he's not there at 5 o'clock, and all of a sudden I'm angry. He's like, What's he doing? I told him to be here. He doesn't even care about me, right? And that anger just immediately kind of flares up inside of us, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
and and it, and merging is a great phrase for that. It's like I am my anger now. It's like I'm nothing but the anger. I'm just so upset with him, and I want to yell at him, or whatever. Or another IFS word would be that we are blended with that part of us. That we
Yeah.
just kind of it's driving the bus of our inner world. And in those moments, it's like we are just flooded by that energy, that the anger itself and all of the cortisol that it's releasing in our bodies is just flowing through us. And the
Yeah.
IFS invitation is actually the same invitation that comes from contemplative traditions. from contemplative practice in Christian traditions or like Buddhist mindfulness. It's an invitation to instead of like being, oh, I'm so angry at Justin for being 5 minutes late. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Let me just catch my breath here. Let me just catch my breath. Oh, wow. And then be aware of there's a lot of anger that is here right now in me.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I can sense it, but I get a little bit of a space from it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, birds on electrical wires, where there could be thousands of volts of electricity going through those wires, but they're not being consumed by it because the poles are grounded in the earth, and they could be aware of, wow, there's a lot of electricity here, but I am no longer merged with the energy. And so you can still feel some of that energy. Yeah, I can feel the frustration. I feel with my daughter or with my son, I feel that anger, but I'm not letting it just kind of flood me and overwhelm me so that I'm just acting out of the anger and saying things that I'm going to later regret. So it's kind of being a
Yeah.
grounded awareness of my anger
Yes.
as opposed to just being the anger and flailing out of its energy. Does that make sense?
Yes. Makes total sense. And I think I'm so curious about it on like a physiological level. Like when you're aware, you can still kind of get the feeling, like you said, of the
Mm,
cortisol moving through
mm.
the body, and it's like you're watching it move through you. Um, yeah, it's just really, it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so
and
cool.
that's what we would call mindfulness, or emotional intelligence. This is what we teach in schools to help children when they have emotions to be able to name their emotions and become aware of their emotions instead of just acting out of the emotions. And it is that kind of grounded awareness. It's like, okay, I'm back on solid ground. I'm not just being whipped around by the currents of the emotion itself, and that groundedness, that okay, I'm aware of the anger I'm feeling. That's a little bit of that self energy that we were talking about. That's a little bit of
Yes.
inner calm, a little bit of inner clarity. It's like a little wedge into, okay, I'm starting to step back into my more grounded, my higher self, my the image of God in me. That's what
Yes.
we're invited into.
Yes. And can you offer an example of when an emotion that we often label as bad, how it might be here for our good?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like the example I started with. Justin's
Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes late, and instinctively, I'm just irritated and upset. I couldn't be more clear with him. Why is he always late? Why doesn't he? And then, for me, I might say, as I'm just fuming internally at Justin, I might have some voice in me saying, "Gosh, look at you! You're a teacher of compassion, and here you're feeling angry. So he's only 5 minutes late. What is the matter with you?" Yeah, I know, but I told him. He could not be more clear. Why does he never respect what I'm at? Boy, you're really not even, how you call yourself a Christian? And that would be like an example of another part of me judging myself for being
Yeah.
angry. And kind of this inner critic. And so, from IFS, it would be like there's a part of me that gets really angry when Justin is 5 minutes late, and there's another part of me that beats myself up when I get angry, that criticizes and judges myself. And it's like those
Yeah.
two interior parts are fighting over the steering wheel. They're trying to fight over who's going to win the day out here. And
Yeah.
what IFS would do is like, okay, so let me catch my breath. Let me kind of get into that grounded space. And let's recognize that every single part of us is rooted in something positive. It's trying to do something helpful for
Mm,
us. So this
yes.
anger, it means well. It's trying to protect me in some way. Even that inner voice of self-judgment, as harsh as it is, it means well. And so we could cultivate sort of a grounded curiosity towards them and say, okay, wow, this is all this anger I'm feeling towards Justin. Why are you here? What is underneath the anger? What is the deep
Yeah.
cry within it? And the
Yeah.
anger may be feeling like, I'm afraid that I'm angry because somebody that loves me is not taking the time to care about me. That here I'm expressing my deep needs, and they don't even care that I'm going to be sitting here waiting for them. I'm afraid that I'm not important enough to the people in my life that I love, that they would want to care that I'm going to be sitting here by myself and not being not have not having them taking the time to take care of me. Um, this it's protecting me from the pain that I would feel of not being important to somebody that I love, that they could care less about my own feelings. That would be a painful thing to have to live with. Am
Yeah,
I making sense? It's that
making total sense.
the anger is like a protective part of me that's trying to protect me from the feeling of aloneness, of a loved one not caring enough to want to tend to one of my desires or one of my requests.
Yes. So that made me think a lot about preparing for this time here with you and even launching this project of exploring Jesus' energy and being spiritually curious while also being rooted in the mission of Jesus and kind of trying to hold these two spaces of sometimes things that are labeled as not Christian, but feel so pure and healing and transformative. I went through a time of wondering if I was Christian, and now I feel like I do resonate as Christian, but maybe in a whole new way. And saying that out loud has brought up fear for me and anxiety, worry of being, for whatever reason, I have this like fear or worry of being labeled as not Christian. And so, taking your class and learning about internal family systems over the years, I've tried to give it that fear, that worry, like a picture or a name to try to find some space from it. And just kind of been spending time with it, like, why is this here? What are you trying to protect me from? And I think I know, like, I've heard this morning, I just keep hearing, like, focus on the good. Focus on God. Like, don't worry so much about this disconnection and focus in on that, but just on what you love about Jesus. And yeah, I think I get emotional about it because I've had such beautiful healing experiences with, I didn't even realize that I was practicing at least something like internal family systems with my spiritual director for years. But I can tell you that one of the times that we did, it was my first like resonant feeling of like heaven on earth in my body. And feeling like, I remember my spiritual director was guiding me through, and I don't mean to go on and on because I want to hear you, but just to say like how much this is in my heart, like,
Yeah. Oh.
She was guiding me through. I was trying to discern about having a fourth child, and I had so much fear around getting postpartum anxiety and depression again, but also this really big yearning to have another baby. And she guided me into holding, like being the space to hold all of this and invite Jesus into it with me. And I remember and everybody's experience is different, but this seems to be like a secret language between me and God, this like kind of blue light in my third eye area that I notice in that heaven on earth space. And so, and then I started hearing about internal family systems after that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's what I've been doing. And I had no idea. And sometime thereafter, I heard, I came in contact with someone that was kind of put off by this idea of parts and was like, what is this? And I was kind of shunned into silence. And like, I have such a personal experience with it and I love it so much. And like, want to shout. I get kind of obnoxious when I love something. I want to like shout it, from the rooftop. So I very much just appreciate and respect the way that you connect this practice with Jesus. It's very dear to me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, thank you for sharing that, Kate. It's very tender, and like IFS. One of the things that that they would say is that parts usually come in pairs, and so
Yeah,
like I can really hear that, that inner debate between a part of you that really wanted to have another child, a fourth child, and yet another part that said, wait a minute, we don't want to go through pain of postpartum depression again, and so that inner debate between two parts that were pulling in different directions, and then that beautiful spiritual director that was able to help you be able to hold both of those parts, that they both mean well, they both are important. One is, an authentic yearning for more love and connection with a family, with another child in the family, and the meaning that brings, and the beauty that is, and another just really doesn't want us to feel pain anymore, and wants us to be really mindful about how we would do that, and to be able to hold both of those with understanding and care and compassion, and then invite Jesus into that space, radical hospitality that's just enormously healing, and a
yeah,
posture that we all want to be able to live out of, to be able to just have such compassion and care for the various conflicting parts of us that we have within us. Yeah. And it
yeah,
sounds like similar, a part of you just really loves finding wisdom in non-Christian sources that really feel resonant. And then another part that carries some fear and anxiety about what would happen if I'm being told that I'm not Christian. I don't know what would be underneath that, but a fear of being rejected perhaps, or being
yeah,
ostracized by people that we care about. And that's a genuine fear. And so how to be with that part of us with compassion, and, what would Jesus want to say to that part of you that is worried that I'll be ostracized if I explore things like IFS by my Christian friends? What would Jesus want to say to that part that carries that kind of anxiety?
yeah. Right away too that he was ostracized and
Mhm.
uh, yeah. And when I say that, I have this huge urge to just scream out. Like I know that it's true. I know. Like I know this is love. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why that makes me so emotional.
Yeah, I'm curious,
Yeah.
Kate. What are the tears? What gets touched so deeply?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that and immediately my mind goes back to like elementary school Kate. Um like walking through church and just feeling like, I don't know. For some reason it just took me back there. And I don't know if I got swayed or pulled with feeling like, oh wait, I'm recording. um but yeah, just this part of me that refused to get confirmed, refused to do things the typical way, and just this little younger self spirit. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and how would
yeah,
Jesus want to be with that elementary school, Kate?
yeah. I'm just gonna go with it and not judge it, but I just get a image of just holding hands with Jesus and just skipping and letting myself be playful and free.
Yeah, a sense that Jesus would just take such delight in her, and even her spirit that doesn't do things the usual way. Jesus loves that in her.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like an IFS way of understanding what's happening, that a part of us is like afraid of being ostracized, and it kind of taps into like maybe a more tender part that knows some of the pain of what it's like to be ostracized. And when those tender parts can be met with a compassionate presence, either from our best self or like from Jesus, and be
Mm-hmm.
reassured that, hey, I'm with you. Jesus is saying, I'm with you. And I love that
Mm-hmm.
about you. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
ostracize you. And that helps us reconnect with our best self, what we know,
Mm-hmm.
the truth. And the anxious part can relax then and not be as worried.
If someone is like moving through this discernment of weighing all of these feelings or ways of being or emotions, how can you discern when you're in that self energy or that image of God within you? What can be like an affirming moment of this is that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense, and a part of the invitation is to kind of cultivate that inner barometer, so we kind of know when we are in that essence, or when we are more lodged and merged with parts of us.
Yeah.
But what one fundamental question that IFS asks that I find very helpful is how am I feeling right now towards these different parts of me? And if I'm
Mm,
feeling kind of open and okay and welcoming and curious, well, then that's a symptom that I'm in my best self. But if I'm feeling judging about it, or I'm feeling afraid of my feelings, or I really don't want to go there because it's just going to ruin my day, or okay, I just want to fix those feelings so they stop feeling that way. Those would all be evidences that there are other parts that are gotten in the way here, and I'm not in my best self. So, am I in a grounded openness, internal
mm,
openness to what I'm experiencing right now, that I can be curious about it, as opposed to being knocked off center. That's one inner barometer that I find really helpful.
thank you. That's so beautiful. I can like see that in my body as you say that. Like I imagine that as this like for whatever reason blue is resonates with me, this like blue stream of openness through my
Mhm.
heart center. Just
Yeah.
as you said that. That's so
Yep.
beautiful.
Hmm.
Um thank you so much for your precious time today and your wisdom. And before we go, if it's cool, I would love to just ask some like rapid fire
Hmm.
questions. You can just
Yeah.
let whatever comes. And the first one is, when do you notice, or how do you notice the presence of God from within your body or just in your
Uh,
midst?
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of like what you just. For me, it's an energetic flow. It's like a little mild electricity, just a current that I feel when I'm in
Well,
that self energy space. I just feel this kind of vital flow of inner spiritual energy that really flows through all of my body. It's just kind of a little soft, tingly kind of a feeling that all of my cells are aligned with this spiritual
mm,
current, this spiritual energy that's sustaining the universe. That's how I most feel it in my body when I'm really connected to that self energy.
that's so beautiful. And how about the presence of Jesus? Do you feel a distinction there? Is it the same, different?
Well, um, I mean, I do feel like that energy and I think it's the energy that sustains the universe. I mean, that just is
Mm,
always permeating all of creation and keeping all of creation alive. I do think that is Christ energy. That's Christ consciousness energy. But I also, in my prayer, well, kind of like what you were just doing a few minutes ago, in my prayer, I often asked Jesus to come and be with me in some of the pain, the wounded places within me, some of my childhood wounds, or
mm,
when I'm struggling with interior parts. I'll invite Jesus to come, and I actually sense his presence, kind of like a spirit guide that comes in my inner world,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
will offer a word of wisdom, or like with you, just kind of be with me and be playful, and there be a companion, or hold me when I'm crying and in pain. But I really feel his, however he lives now in the spirit world, like he comes and meets us in the different spaces of our lives. I find that to be a very powerful way of praying.
Mm. Thank you. That's so beautiful. I just want to like swim in that forever. Um, what does faith mean to you?
Faith. So actually, I have a little different take on faith than what most people think. I mean, most people kind of think faith is trying to believe something you really want to be true, but you're not really sure. And so we'll just have faith about it. I don't think that's what Jesus meant when he said faith. When he encountered somebody directly, and brought healing to them, he said, "Your faith now is what makes
Mm.
you whole."
Mm.
And what he meant was your direct experience with me coming into your life, and you knowing me, seeing you as beloved, and seeing you as whole, and seeing you as welcomed and not ostracized like the priest wants to tell you that you are. That is what saves you. And so I think what faith is those times where we are in immediate contact with God or with Jesus, and we
Wow.
just know I am beloved, Jesus is
Wow.
with me, I am held. And in those moments, it's like we know what we know, what we know, and nobody can tell us otherwise. That
Wow.
is, I think, what faith is. And often we then get involved in life and we forget what we know. We kind of get wrapped up then in the relational dynamics with people we find difficult, or we just get busy and we forget what we know. And faith is coming back to, no, I remember now. I am beloved. I am loved no matter how anybody else treats me. And that is my rock center. I think that's what
Mm.
faith is. It's knowing for real in our bones.
Mm. Mm. That's so stunning. How are you hearing from God right now in your life? And what are you hearing, if you'd like to share?
Right now, what I'm hearing, just the polarizations that are happening everywhere, and just the terrors and the fears and the anxieties that are ripping us apart. And what I'm hearing God saying right now is, I am holding all of it. I am
Mm.
holding all of it. I'm holding all of the fears, all of the
Mm.
anxieties. I'm holding all of the people who believe one way. I'm holding all of the people who believe the other way. I am holding every single bit of this with
Mm.
compassion and with care. And I will continue to hold all of it no matter what happens.
Yes, 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 yes. And lastly, I hope to end every time with an invitation to healing. So I'm curious if you have just a small practice or a simple mindset shift or something you would feel compelled to invite us into for the week ahead.
Well, normally I would invite us into like an internal practice of healing. But on the heels of what I just said, I mean, if we're going to try to find a way that we can be with each other in this country, people that we might have deep, deep disagreements with, we're going to find a way to be together that is healing and connecting, and we're all in this together, trying to find a way to survive together. The one healing practice I would invite us into um, is to cultivate a little bit of curiosity towards somebody who we disagree severely with.
Mm.
Instead of judging people, instead of writing people off, instead of trying to silence other people, um, instead of demonizing other people, what if we just cultivated a little bit of curiosity towards somebody that we are polarized with? To be
Mm.
curious about what makes them tick? Why do they believe the way that they believe? What's really at the heart of the matter for them? What's at stake for them? What do they
Mm.
love and believe in and want to see for our country that they see this path as the way to go. And to just kind of, we don't have to agree with them. We don't have to legitimate their views, but we can cultivate a little more understanding of, okay, I see where you come with that. I can appreciate that.
Mm.
And the end game for a democracy is not that we all believe the same thing. The end game is that we are able to find a way to live together, even in the midst of our differences, and trust that everybody's take on it has some wisdom within it. And so let's listen for those kernels of wisdom, and try to reach out in that way. I think that would be a healing step for
Yeah.
where we are in our history right now.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You have so much kindness and goodness to share. And I was noticing as you were speaking, like this whole time, I feel like my eyes have just been closed, like listening to your words. And what you described as like the flow of energy moving through you, how you experiencing God, I was like, wow, I feel that those words coming through you, and then this like cellular
Mhm.
experience within me,
Mhm.
which it's just lovely. So thank you for sharing that flow of goodness and love and kindness and compassion through you. And thank you for your time. It is such a joy to have you here with me. I just know that you are a committed light worker in this world and that your very being is emanating light and goodness out from you right here in this moment. So, after recording, a part of me really wished I would have talked with Frank more about his incredible story and his book, and more about how to move through big T trauma well. But thankfully, he wrote this stunning book, which is a loving resource, Cradled in the Arms of Compassion, a spiritual journey from trauma to recovery. So I wanted to, again, make mention of that in case you feel pulled to dive into more of that story. And also, Frank offered up some helpful resources for utilizing internal family systems as support in moving through trauma. These resources will be listed in the show notes from this episode, and they can also be found at jesusenergy.substack.com. So, my prayer for you is that you feel wrapped in the arms of compassion and encounter the support and friendship of Jesus along your journey of healing. So much love to you.